Hey everybody. Well, we're getting started. Do you guys see the screen share and then like boxes with people's names?
Nadine lost.
Yeah.
Join the meeting.
We'll go ahead and get started in just a few minutes. I have 1:56 on my clock, so in about 4 5 minutes we'll get started. All right, I'll go ahead and get us started. It's nice to see your names with faces. I always like to have opportunities to interact with my students online. I know that sometimes it can be hard with, mainly us having asynchronous activities to be able to have the opportunity to talk to students and to meet like this. So I appreciate you guys making time for this because I know that it's not something that is, required of you. These are recorded, but I appreciate you, you know, taking the time to be here. So, um, what I like to do first is just introduce myself. My name is Dr. Cassie Dinecola, and I'll be your instructor for Social Work 7009 Research 1 for this module. Um, so today, what we will be doing is kind of went too far. Kind of an overview for our meetups. These are going to be times for us to meet as a group, to talk about assignments all together, maybe to have an opportunity to hear from your other classmates, issues that they have that are coming up or things that they're thinking of. Um, we also are going to have some guest speakers. Today, we are going to have a guest with us from the LSU library system. Her name is Andrea Aber, and she is our dedicated librarian. She is going to talk to us a little bit about what's available for you guys through the libraries. She knows that you guys have been assigned to do the tutorials through the libraries, and that you have this literature search and annotated bib assignment that's due on Sunday. She's looked over the guidelines and things. So after we talk about it a little bit, she's going to join us at 2:15 to show you around some of the resources online from the libraries. After that, I'll tell you a little bit more about me. Actually, I don't know why that's right there. I'll do that before we talk about the assignment. I'd like to give you just a tour of the Moodle site today. I know that, this week that you guys, are kind of piecing all the parts together on the site. I know that my class is probably a lot different than some of the classes that you've had in the past in the program, because I do like to have more student engagement, to have you guys interacting with each other. And I do that through using a lot of technology tools that, while they're very cool and innovative, you've already probably seen that they also come with the trade-off of having glitches sometimes and running into issues. And I try to be more available for my students because I know that those things are going to come up. But I also don't want them to be a barrier where you get too frustrated with it. So that's something that we will kind of be balancing throughout the semester. Um, is using these tech tools in the most efficient way for you guys. So I'll give you a tour of Moodle so that you can kind of see where things are from my point of view, and how I've kind of set up the class. There's lots of different ways to attack the assignments and the course itself, but I can give you a little bit of background about my thought process in designing things. And then today, we're really just going to have some open time at the end for questions and answers. So, any kind of questions that you have about, grading, about, different tech issues or assignments, really just about anything. On most of our meetings like this, we'll also have a little short lecture where I'll kind of pinpoint some of the key concepts from that week. Today, since we have Andrea coming to talk with us, I've decided that was more important for you guys to have some time with her. Um, and we also will have some time usually for breakout groups at the end, so that you can have some time in smaller groups with your peers to discuss different issues that are related to social work research. And so today, if after we get through with questions and answers, we have a little bit of time, we'll do that. All right. Anybody have any questions before we get started? Is everybody seeing everything okay and hearing everything okay? All right. Cool. All right. So the first thing that I wanted us, well, yeah, actually, I'm going to skip over some stuff and I'm going to tell you about me first. So, I know that whenever, you know, um, you kind of go into a class, a lot of times you don't know a whole lot about your professor, and we expect you guys to open up and share and be vulnerable and give us lots of information about you. And so I try to be open a little about who I am, and so that you can know who is teaching you and what what my background is and what I'm bringing to our experience that we're going to have this module together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my professional interests and then some personal interests. So professionally, my interest is autism. I really am interested in a concept that is called neurodiversity. Has anybody heard of neurodiversity or what that means? No? Not a lot of people are shaking their head. So, neurodiversity is more of an idea that um, and that things like autism and ADHD and other kind of like cognitive mental health issues are more socially constructed, or that there are social components to them. So, for instance, with autism, that this movement has really been kind of spearheaded by adults who are on the autism spectrum. And it's a lot like, the civil rights movement of wanting, there to be more input from people who actually experience being autistic in research and in services. And the viewpoint is really thinking as a different brain style rather than a disorder. And so that's kind of the lens that I operate from that perspective. Does somebody have a question? Nope. Okay. Um, Checking my time to make sure that wasn't Andrea. Um, So my professional experience has been mainly working with adults who are on the autism spectrum, but I also have an interest in crisis intervention and some background in crisis intervention, and in community work and nonprofit administration. So I had the opportunity to serve as the executive director of a nonprofit that provided vocational training and independent living skills training for adults with autism. And the little computer is there because, as you guys have already noticed, I'm very into techie stuff. I like to use technology in my practice as a social worker and in my teaching style. Personally, I live in Baton Rouge. I went to LSU for undergrad, for my MSW, and for my PhD. So I guess you could say that I bleed, purple and gold, but I'm not really a big football fan. um, I have a daughter and a son who are still itty bitties. They're 7 and 3. Sometimes you might hear them in my videos because they're at home with me right now during COVID-19 quarantine. Um, and when COVID hit, I decided to start learning how to play the guitar. Um, so that's a little bit about me. I've started teaching for LSU in I started in 2014 during my doctoral program, but I started teaching as an instructor of record in 2017, and pretty much like 80% of my experience has been teaching all online. And I really enjoy working with students online and getting to meet you guys and to learn about how social workers work all across the country in different settings. So I'm really excited to get to know, a new group of students this semester. All right, so let's go back. That might be Andrea who just popped on. Let's see. I'm going to keep an eye on her. I think that might be Andrea. So, before Andrea joins us, I just want to talk a little bit about the research proposal assignment and to give you a little bit of context for the assignment. So, usually, the research proposal assignment in this course is a major 15 to 20 page paper assignment that's due at the end of the semester or at the end of the 7 week module. And I decided I wasn't going to do that to you guys. I think, especially in an online format, having like mini assignments that kind of build up into a major assignment work a lot better so that you can get feedback along the way instead of it being, the end of the module, we're all like getting crunched to when grades are due. And that's when we're just finding out that maybe you didn't understand a lot of the things in the class. And so I want to know more of those things along the way. So that's why I've broken it up this way. The first assignment that you guys have already probably started working on is the literature search and the annotated bibliography. This is really to get your feet wet with research. So I want you guys to really be thinking about when you do this assignment, making sure that you're feeling comfortable using the online resources. If you're having trouble finding appropriate resources, to start kind of troubleshooting that. This is a time that I'm expecting you to be able to kind of generally look at journal articles. By the end of this module, we'll be critiquing journal articles, but at this point, we're just gathering kind of surface information from the articles. All right, let me make sure I'm not missing. Andrea, are you on the call yet? No? Okay, I'll keep going then. I'm going to switch my screen for a minute to go to the course website. Oh, there's Andrea. Did you just hop on?
I just did. It was like for 2:15, right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it was. I
I was
wanted
like,
to
I
make
hope she
sure
hasn't
I
been hanging
wasn't
out
just
for 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I didn't like keep jibber jabbering and miss you hop on.
No.
um, so really, we've gotten through kind of the intro stuff that I wanted to before you joined us. We were just starting to talk about kind of the context of the assignment. So,
Mhm.
like I told you, this is like the first of a series of assignments that they'll be doing.
Mhm.
And so, the purpose of this assignment for them really is to get more familiar with using the databases and just kind of, finding journal articles, being able to identify, like, okay, is this a conceptual article? Is this empirical? Is this qualitative or is it quantitative? Some of those kind of basic, things are what I'm wanting them to practice and to get some experience with APA style and practicing putting references in that format.
Okay. So,
I'm
first off,
gonna
is this like
um,
today's
I'm
is
gonna
today the
stop sharing
class?
my screen and put you up so they
Okay.
can. they can see you.
So is today like the first day of class?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is an all online, this is an LSU online class. So they were, it's not a, an on campus that moved online. So,
Okay. So it's unusual to have a synchronous class, like a synchronous class, right? For LSU online, right?
it is. And what I do is I record them, so it's not mandated for them to be here.
Okay.
But it is something that I do once a week on Fridays, and I record.
Okay. Great. So my name is Andrea, and I am the librarian for the College of Human Sciences and Education. So if you run into problems while you're doing assignments because you're having a hard time finding sources or understanding what a good source is, or how to find those sources, I'm the person that you would contact. So if you're wondering if you can get by without physically being at the library, you should know I've been working at home since like March. And I function just fine. Like I've literally been to campus twice. I like went to like pick up my desktop computer setup after a few months because I needed two monitors to function, and like I had to pick it up from like the loading dock in the back of the library. And the other time I went in to get like my APA style manual. So if I can, do my job for 5 months without being there, you can get through your program. So, um, is this everybody's first semester or first module?
I
No,
think we've got kind of a mix
a
in
mix.
here.
Okay. So what I'm going to do today is I know most of you or many of you have already gone through the tutorials. So you should have a fair amount of background knowledge. Um, but we're going to go ahead and just do like a sample search. And we're going to base that sample search on the example of cognitive behavioral therapy, um, and was it anxiety and
Yeah, the example I
for
went to
autism
use
spectrum
was
disorder?
anxiety, yeah, among youth with autism.
Okay, so super good thing for us to use because there are a lot of things we can do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Do you need some help doing that? Do I need to
I
do it
should
from
be
my?
good.
Oh, you got it. There we go. Perfect.
Um, so, right, first off, this is like the landing page for the library. And there are a lot of places you can go. And so most people, if they don't have a lot of experience with the library's offerings, will start right here at Discovery, and that's fine. But it searches a lot of things at one time. So just like Walmart sells everything, Discovery has everything, which is good and bad. So if it's like a one-stop shop, but it may be hard to find what you're looking for because there's just so much stuff. So for example, if you want organic granola, it can be hard to find at Walmart because like they've got mops and brooms and a ton of like other cereals and granola. But the organic granola, they're probably not going to have a lot of it. It might be in a different space than like the regular cereal. So it's going to take a while to find it. Whereas if you go someplace like Whole Foods, it should be easy to find. They're not selling mops and brooms, and they kind of specialize in that. Like it's kind of like a little boutique store. So Discovery is like a big box database. Um, but there are like what I consider like boutique databases that are a little bit more specialized. They won't have everything in them, but they're more likely to have what you're looking for. Um, Luckily, they work kind of the same way, and a lot of them will have the same type of look and feel. So, and to give you an example, we'll do the same search both in Discovery and in like one of the boutique databases. But what you're going to want to do is hit advanced search. Um, And I don't know if it thinks that I don't have full access or not. We'll find out. Um, but so let's say we know we're thinking about, oops, cognitive behavioral therapy. Is that spelled correctly? Cognitive.
There you go.
Um, and sometimes, right, you'll see it referred to as CBT. And you don't care which way they're referring to it. You just want one or the other, right? Doesn't matter. And then, right, autism spectrum disorder, and then anxiety. So of these, all of the results that come up have to deal with cognitive behavioral therapy and autism spectrum disorder and anxiety. If it's just about anxiety, it will not come up. If it's just about autism spectrum disorder, it won't come up. If it's just about cognitive behavioral therapy, it won't come up. If it's just about cognitive behavioral therapy and anxiety, but does not mention autism spectrum disorder, it won't come up. So the more things you add, the smaller your number of results will be. So, and actually we'll do this, we'll take one away. So if we just wanted to talk about cognitive behavioral therapy and autism spectrum disorder, and now we'll find out whether or not, okay, it also says my connection is unstable. So if you can't hear me, someone let me know. Okay, so right, we get over 1,000 hits. That's kind of a lot. But if we add anxiety here, oops, it's going to bring it down even more. However, we also know that we want to deal with what? Young adults. So we're going to add another line right here and add like young adults. And by young adults, do you mean like adolescents or up to a certain age?
So I think that the younger adults or emerging adults or young adulthood is probably
Okay.
most relevant.
So we're going to pick that because we don't care if people are being called emerging adults or young adults, or if we're talking about young adulthood, like people in young adulthood. Doesn't matter, just one of them. Okay, if we add that in addition, it's going to bring it down to 45, which is super doable as far as looking through the results. So there's some other things that you're going to want to look at. Actually, okay, well, the timeline is not all that bad. So that's only like 11 years. So this would be completely doable. I wouldn't, everybody can go through 45 results. But what you're going to want to do is actually look at what the article says. So, or just an overview of what the article says, because you don't want to read the article until you've read what's called the abstract, which is the summary. So if you don't have a lot of experience, which before I went to graduate school, I had limited experience with academic articles. They're typically pretty dense. I know, like in my own field, it takes me several hours to get through one. And that's like in my field and what I'm really interested in, and which I have like a pretty big background in, pretty solid background, and it still takes me hours. And I'm a fast reader. Like I can read a novel in a day. That's like no big deal for me. But it can take me like 3 hours to get through like 10 pages of an article. And you don't want to sink that much time into an article that you could have ruled out by reading the summary. So if you're looking for qualitative, or if you're looking for quantitative research, you could read that abstract and find out that the article is qualitative. So you don't want to sink all your time into like say reading an article that's qualitative when you were looking for quantitative, and you could have like been 3 episodes into whatever series it is that you're binging, instead of reading like this incredibly dense article that, like, if you're lucky, has a table and maybe a graph. um, this has happened to me. So and I still have resentment, so don't make my mistakes. And read the abstract. So if we look at the abstract, you can see, like, given the high rates of comorbid anxiety and autism spectrum disorder in the adolescent and young adult population, effective treatment protocols to address symptoms of anxiety are of importance to help promote greater independence across settings. So far, so good, right? While research supports the use of cognitive behavioral therapy across younger age groups with ASD, the literature is limited on interventions benefiting adolescents and young adults with comorbid anxiety disorders and ASD. So this is like kind of what you're looking for, right? So far, so therefore, this open trial utilized a modified CBT manual for 7 participants. That's not a lot, but you know, it's something. Between the ages of 16 and 20, consisting of blah, 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 blah. Measures of anxiety and depression were completed at baseline and post-treatment. Findings demonstrated significant reductions in clinician-rated measures of anxiety. So, right, if they're using some sort of measure, usually it's quantitative. So I would say, like, this might be a good article if you're looking for an empirical article. Does that make sense? Okay. I know sometimes I talk really fast, so.
Yeah, and we can do thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs sideways to kind of check in. Um,
So, does anyone have any questions about like what I just did? Does it, so do you feel pretty good about this so far? Okay. So when you read that abstract, you should get an idea of whether or not it's quantitative or qualitative by the description. Like, so if you see something like interview, or if you see something along the terms, like along like content analysis or something like that, or even the word, like sometimes they'll use qualitative, big things like that, you can know which one you're looking for. So this works usually the exact same way in larger databases, or like in specialty databases. In fact, like in this case, I was so happy with this result and the few number of results that came back. I would maybe even be okay with stopping here. But if you're working with something broader, you might want to try like a different database so you're not overwhelmed. Like in this case, let's go back to our result list. Because the topic is so narrow, it automatically took out basically anything that was not an academic journal article. So you already lost books, you already lost like newspaper articles, you lost magazine articles already. So it ruled those out because the topic is so specific. It's not something that you're likely to read about in Time magazine, in other words. So far so good. So let's go ahead and talk about like where would you get an idea of where you might find some of these other databases that might be helpful. So I have it's called like a research guide, and there is one for social work. Okay, right here. And I have a list of them, and depending on what you're working on, some will be better than others. Some will be too specialized, some will be too broad, some just won't be relevant to the aspect that you're working on. So for example, if you are working with something that deals with policy, something like psych info might not be as great. if you're dealing with something for policy. Usually something broader like academic search complete or like psychology and behavioral sciences collection might be better if you're looking for something that's dealing with policy. But if you're dealing with something like cognitive behavioral therapy, I would say Psych Info is a good place to go. And when I open it up, you'll see that it's going to look very similar to what we just looked at. You can see like the EBSCO branding, and I explained this to someone earlier. So EBSCO is like Ford. It's like a brand. And just like Ford makes different types of cars, EBSCO makes different types of database, like different databases. So, and whenever I say they make a lot, I mean they make a lot. And they all look exactly alike. So they make all of these over here, and they're all going to look almost exactly like this. But if you look right here, you'll know which one you're working with. And what each one contains is usually a little bit different. So there are some that are going to look just like this. But for example, like the Old Testament abstracts, what's in Old Testament abstracts database is going to be completely different than what's in here. And the reason why I'm asking this is that it's very easy to accidentally search a database and not know what you're searching at without paying attention. And if you're trying to redo your search, then it's important to know what you're searching in the first place. I got off on a tangent there, but sorry. So we'll just start so you can see what we're talking about. So and again, we'll just do like anxiety. Okay, and we'll start adding additional things later. But we already talked about how adding another phrase keeps on narrowing it down like a funnel. So PsycInfo is one of my favorite databases because it has some features that other databases don't necessarily have. You were able to actually filter not only by like academic, journal article or time, but you can actually also filter by age, which is nice. So if you are in particular interested in like young adulthood, and by young adulthood, you happen to mean like 18 to 29, you could filter for those. It doesn't mean that the only people in that study will be in that age group, but that age group will definitely be included in the study. You can also go ahead and filter by gender. So if you wanted to make sure that the article included not only males, but females in addition, you would hit that. So the other thing that it has that many do not have is, in fact, this one and like maybe one big medical.
This is a feature I didn't know it had.
It's the best feature. It's like why I teach everyone how to use it, because I'm lucky enough. Well, I don't teach library science students how to use it because it doesn't really do what they're working with. Although sometimes like if the information seeking stuff, like the cognitive process for it, but for every other discipline I work with, I can work it in there somehow, and it's the best. Mainly because everybody struggles with literature reviews. I struggle with them. I mean, I really am not a huge fan of writing them. But right, to understand what a good literature review looks like, you can actually like filter for literature reviews, and that's what you'll be left with. So you can have a good example of what one looks like.
And for this assignment that they have that's due on Sunday, there are a couple of requirements of like types of articles that they
Yes.
need to include. So this would be very helpful for finding an empirical article or a literature.
Yes. So it's like I said, it's one of my favorite things. So, like if you were wanted to make sure your article was, you know, let's go back down to methodology. Like if you wanted an empirical study or in particular, like a quantitative study, you could do that as well. It's great. Um, yeah. So now you have a new tool in your toolbox.
Mhm.
So, it's a good feature to have. I wish every database had this, but they don't. There are ways to like manhandle results in other databases to get the same thing out of it, but it generally requires like adding a whole nother search field. So, but this is nice. So, and again, it's like one of two databases that I know of that you can do it with. So,
Mhm. Andrew, while we have you,
yes.
I just thought about this when I saw test and measures, but later in the semester,
Mhm.
they will be needing to look for their own scales that they would use
Yes.
to measure certain variables.
Mhm.
So, for instance, if a student picks a topic that's related to anxiety, then they would need to find an existing scale.
Such a good example.
Yeah.
So, and we can do it right from here.
Okay.
So, let's go ahead and we'll just pull this out and we'll just start over with anxiety. Um, so, if you want to know what type of scale has been used a lot in the last, say, 10 years for articles that deal with anxiety, like you can hit anxiety, right? Limit it to like the last 10 years. And when you come down here to test and measures, it will actually list um, the scales that are used in the studies with the articles over here. So you can see that the hospital anxiety and depression scale is popular, and the Beck Depression Inventory or State Trait Anxiety Inventory or the Beck Anxiety Inventory. Like these seem to be like big ones because they're used so often. Um, but then you're like, well, that's great to know, but how do I actually find the scale? So um, I get so excited about this. So there is back over here for your social work list of databases. There's one called Psych Test, and it's like Psych Info, which I love. It's like a baby. And so it also has psych therapy. If you ever want to watch like therapy sessions, you can like watch them um, through like psych therapy. But you would go to Psych Test, and again, it's going to look very similar. Um, so what was it, Beck?
We might have a question, Noah.
Yes, Noah. Oh, hi, Noah.
Hi, thanks for letting me raise my hand.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a question for both of you, Ms. Herbert and Professor Dinecola.
Hmm.
Um, I was kind of curious on. I just noticed that in specifically Psych Info, there's the ability to set the filter for a meta-analysis, and I was wondering two things. One, how do we accurately search for, I guess, what would be called a top-down type of resource so that I can get a better grasp of information that I'm not sure of more systematically. But I think my bigger question is, how would you suggest phrasing my keywords if I don't know what types of interventions are necessary for a certain diagnosis, and how to treat that diagnosis? If I don't know, if I'm just dealing with a diagnosis, yeah, how do I begin to grab hold of what interventions are even available, and how might I search for that?
Do you have a diagnosis in mind, Noah?
I don't, but the one I was working with as an example was just depression and anxiety, which is obviously a pretty big, pretty big thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I think that in Andrea can kind of speak to this too, but I think that um, you may want to consider narrowing down a little bit because
Mhm.
this might be a good example for Andrea for you to show how you can get millions of hits on things.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, that I absolutely feel like that is so overwhelming to use these databases.
So I'm also wondering if there is some, does the DSM actually talk about different types of interventions for, I haven't looked up through one in a while.
Yeah, so the DSM doesn't give as much information about interventions. Like usually, it talks a little bit about that. Like it might be a paragraph or a page about, interventions. But it's mainly about the presentation and the diagnostic criteria. So,
Okay.
mm.
Um,
But you might want to it maybe in your initial search, and actually the DSM could be a place to look for,
just as a start.
yeah, like one for depression, I would say is like interpersonal therapy. It's one that not a lot of new social workers have heard of or know. Um, so it might be a way to narrow things down.
Sure, interpersonal therapy being the name of the intervention.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, yeah, my question's more, I mean, obviously having you as a resource is incredible. But if I wasn't able to ask you, Professor, um, you know, how do I effectively narrow my keywords so that I do get to resources that are really valuable, but also broad enough to tackle a really broad subject?
So generally for me, it's trial and error,
Hmm.
which is not a very gratifying answer, I know.
It's just like the it depends answer that a
Right,
lot of
right.
students, it depends.
Because a lot of times I'm searching for things that are not in my area of specialization. I'm going on what like people describe to me. I have to do like a lot of correcting myself. So if people make appointments with me, I almost always ask them ahead of time what their topic is. And it generally takes me sometimes like 30 minutes to prep for an appointment. And generally, like, I don't know, maybe 20 of that will be like failed searches. Um, and that's something that I think that students don't hear a lot. Like, it's not an easy process.
Mhm.
Um, you're going to like have more failures than successes at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Okay.
And like the more you do it, the better you get. So like if it's something that I have a lot of familiarity, that I'm very familiar with because I work with on that topic with students repeatedly, um, I'm much faster at it.
Hmm.
But if I'm starting from scratch, like you're unfamiliar with something, it's going to take you a little while to adjust your searching, because you're going to be learning the vocabulary that's used to describe something. And every field can describe something differently.
Right.
So, for example, we often refer to like food deserts, right? And food deserts are something everyone's, or most people are familiar with the term. But when you look in professional literature, it might appear in some places, but it's really related to something called like food security or food insecurity. And
Hmm.
that's generally going to get you better results than just looking at food deserts. Like food deserts are one aspect of it, but food insecurity is a larger aspect of it that might get you better results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I guess last question on that same note, would you encourage putting all of the keywords that you possibly can into your search, or is that gonna kind of limit it too much and keeping it a little bit more broad is more useful?
So it depends. it can either make it too broad or too narrow, depending
Okay.
on how what you're putting in there. Um, so the databases don't necessarily work like Google. They use something that's called Boolean searching. So they use the words and, or, and sometimes they'll use, you can use not, but it's very specialized. So most people don't use it. If you use the word or, like we did earlier, let me go back over to maybe like this one up here. So if you did like anxiety, right, we have like 129,000. If you added R right here, actually, we'll just do this without it. If you added depression, I don't even know how to spell depression because I stopped to think about it. Okay. If you just put in anxiety, depression, you're going to get like 44,000. If you put anxiety or depression, you're going to get like over 200,000. If you did anxiety and depression, you're going to get 66,000. So each of those were different. So you have to be careful of what you're putting in there because it's going to make a difference on what you pull out. So, and all of these would have, and so a lot of times, like when I do this as an example, I try to do this so people will understand that I'm using it as a linking word.
Yeah.
That is the same thing as like this, because you can see like the database has the linking word in there too. But if like you didn't care which one it was, oh, and then you wanted to add like, I don't know, like, I'm not very good at thinking of examples today.
You could do COVID. That's been
Oh,
something.
that's good. Yeah, Lord knows I have. Oh, so the first time I went to the grocery store after like this started, like my partner had been going to the grocery store for us, and I went in and I realized like I hadn't noticed there were arrows on the floor, and I was like, I was just completely unaware of them, and I was like, I've been going up the wrong aisle, and I felt like guilt and anxiety, and like I came home and like basically spent the rest of the afternoon like staring at the wall. It was just like a complete meltdown. It
Oh my
was
God.
not good.
I know it's been such a shift in the way that we do everything, really.
Yeah. And everyone that I know has the same like sort of story of like just one day I just couldn't anymore. It was just too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So good topic. But you'll see that they only have 12 results right here. And there could be several reasons. They may be listing it as like novel coronavirus or whatever, but it's more likely that, well, at this point, they probably have several articles, but it takes a while for peer review to go through. And since this emerged in Marchish, um, for the stuff to like the research to be like done, written, submitted, reviewed, revised, and then published, that's like 5 months is pretty quick for 12 articles to already have come out.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's a good example. I
Um,
forgot where I was going with
Something
this.
else I don't know if I have mentioned in my videos to students and the information I've shared with them, but we have an interlibrary loan service.
Oh,
That's
amazing. Yeah.
great. But if you are like, I'm doing my assignment tonight or this weekend and it's due on Sunday and I need all linked full text, like I need to find articles that I can just read online right away and just click on a link. There's a way to narrow your search that way. So you're
Yeah.
only looking at the ones that have the full PDF link. Um,
Yeah.
not to discourage you from using interlibrary loan because I fell in love with it whenever I was writing my dissertation. And it's really pretty quick. I think LSU is,
Yeah, those people are amazing. It is.
mhm. I think you might have froze on us, Andrea.
Yeah,
Oh,
I did. I saw the little thing that I was becoming unstable. Um, let's see. I'll stop sharing my video. How about that? And maybe that will help. Better? No.
right. So, Noah, are you feeling more comfortable about your question? Cool. All right. Do we have any other questions for Andrea while we have her here? She really is an excellent resource. And so, even if you don't have questions now, um, you know, setting up an appointment with her could be really, really helpful if you start coming up with, problems with finding relative articles. She's a really great resource.
And I really do love working with students. It's very gratifying. So also, I did want to say, like, if anyone lives in Louisiana or is from Southwest Louisiana, I'm originally from like a coastal parish. I live originally from Vermilion Parish, so my heart goes out to you if you're from that area because it is extremely difficult right now. So I did want to say that and acknowledge that difficulty, um, especially if you remember, say, Rita. It was a very difficult storm to go through this time.
Right. Yeah. So, are there any lingering questions that we have about the library
If
and
you are shy, you can send them directly to me if you'd like. Um,
okay. Well, if we don't have any questions, I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us today,
yeah.
Andrea. It's always really helpful to have someone from the library to come because the little videos that I've given them, they're probably finding searches of like a million things. Is my strategy is a lot different than what you just showed, and so I would definitely use Andrea's strategies, and my strategy is to go into academic search complete and then select all databases and then to search. uh,
You know, whatever, uh-oh, everyone's frozen again. So,
yeah, I think we will
um,
see again.
well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I
thank
know.
you.
Okay. And feel free to contact me anytime.
All right, and I'll be sure to put your, I think I already have your contact information on our course site, so I'll point the
Okay.
students that way.
And if you'd like, I can send you links to the course guides that I shared today.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, super. You have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Andrea.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Okay, I'm going to switch back over to share my screen with you guys real quick. All right, can you guys see the course page? Okay. So, the next thing that I wanted to do with you guys was to just kind of give you a tour of the Moodle site. As I was saying earlier, I know there's lots of moving parts in this class. This is already a class that I think a lot of students are a little nervous about because I think that most of us go into social work not to be researchers. but to be doing more direct practice. And so there tends to be a lot more anxiety surrounding this class. So I want to make sure that everybody is feeling comfortable and understanding where to find things on Moodle. If you have questions, how to get support. Um, that's what I'm here for. A lot of times I get, apologies at the end of emails from students. I'm so sorry for bothering you. This is my job. I'm here to help you guys, and I'm happy to help. And even with the technology issues, sometimes I might have to refer you to LSU ITS for things because it's just things I can't control or it's past what I can troubleshoot. But I'm happy to help students whenever they have issues that come up. All right, before I get started with this, are there any specific questions right now that you guys have?
I have a question.
Yeah, who I don't know who that is though. Can you press the little raise your hand thing, I think?
Oh, yes.
Okay, Mackenzie, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so I was wondering if there's like a way through the middle site where we can look at like our actual like official grade for your class throughout the
There
module.
is, and I have it blocked from you guys right now on purpose. It will be visible before you get your grades back um, for this first assignment. But I like to have a little bit more time to make sure that I have things right before I share it with everybody, just because it increases anxiety because if there's a glitch in things, people think they're failing the class or that they haven't turned something in, and so that's why I haven't shared it yet because I just want to make sure I have it in a spot where I'm feeling more comfortable with it. And I'll also share with you another reason why I decided to do that is that everything that you've been doing up until this point is going to be something that is graded for completion. So, like all of the participation activities and things, they're all graded for completion. You might get some feedback from me on things, but your final grade for that, if you did it, if it was out of 15 points or 20 points, even if you got a bunch of the questions wrong, you're still going to get the 20 points for it. Um, but I definitely understand where that can be stressful as a student, and I can assure you that it's going to be up soon. I promise. It's probably going to be like on Monday that it'll be up for you guys to view.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions right now? Okay. All right. I have my screen in student mode right now, so this should be what all of you see right now because I think that everybody has done the getting started page. Thank you for going through and that and doing that. I am working on watching your videos and kind of putting together some information from the surveys that you guys completed. We are going to be able to do a couple activities with that later when we do data analysis. So that should be kind of fun for us to have that. I'll also use that information to help me to decide what group to put you in for the journal club assignments. So in those assignments, you guys are really going to be focusing on analyzing articles, so reading articles and then critiquing them and deciding did that author really use a good sampling strategy for did they have enough participants in their study to make the claim that they are making. Those are the kind of things that you are going to be doing in your journal club. Most of that, and we'll kind of get to that whenever I get there. Um, about the specifics of that. I lost my train of thought just a little bit. Um, Anybody want to help me on what I was talking about before the journal club? Who was paying attention? I know at least one person was. Well, I'll just get back to the tour then. So I have this in student mode. This should be what you guys see. I was talking about the survey. That's what it was. So your journal clubs, I try to match you up with people who are in um, your area. So y'all are on the same time zone, and then I also try to group people by things that they're interested in, because not every group isn't going to be looking at the same articles, and so I want you guys to be talking about things that you're interested in. All right. So this is the home screen. On the home screen, there's a couple of different things here. You'll see the syllabus, the forums. The course information is basically the course syllabus in a digital format. So anytime there was like a link in the syllabus, it might be easier to access this way. Like for instance, if you wanted to set up a meeting with me, it might be easier to just go to consultation with your professor here and to scroll down. And if you guys haven't noticed this, there's an extra credit opportunity that's kind of embedded here, and this is also in your syllabus. But I give students who have a one-on-one meeting with me at some point during the semester a 1% extra credit towards your final grade. So if you had a 96, you'll get a 97. And so this is where you can sign up for that. You would click on virtual visits and kind of go through this, and it will get us set up. So I was telling you that because sometimes it's easier to access stuff this way than going into the syllabus. Another thing to show you here is I just clicked on Tech Tools. This is a resource for you guys on the different tech tools that we'll be using in the class. I try to give you like a little explanation of what it is, how we'll be using it in our class. And then if you keep scrolling down, there's some videos that are actually from the companies that that do this. So, tutorials on like how to set up an account or how to make a post, those sorts of things. So this will come in handy for you guys. Also, I have just some general techie links that are for LSU and LSU ITS on here too. You'll notice on this that anytime there is something embedded that looks like this kind of pinky purple, that there's more than just what you see. You can scroll up and down in the columns, and you can scroll this way. So make sure you're not missing things in those. All right, I'm going to go back to the home page. Another quick thing that I wanted to share with you guys is the Ask Your Instructor forum. You guys have already been using it and being really active with it. I've been really happy with that. One thing I want to remind you guys to do is to make sure that you search through these before you ask a question, just because there have been some questions that have been duplicated. Or I've gotten emails about questions that are already answered there. And the reason I have it set up like this is that I'm happy to help, but it's much more efficient to do it this way. because all of your classmates get the benefit of your answer, and a lot of your classmates have the same question. And so it means that I end up spending time copying, pasting things from emails into the forum whenever it could be there already. If it's something personal, of course, don't post it there. Shoot me an individual email. But most things that are about tech glitches or questions about assignments in general can go on there. Any questions about the Ask Your Instructor forum? If you have questions at any time, you can use the raise your hand feature, or you can write a question in the chat box. I'll be kind of keeping an eye on the chat box, although I don't see where it is right now. Nope, no chat messages. Okay. We talked about course information. Course calendar, I've added this because in the past, I've found that it's hard for some students to kind of keep up with the calendar on Moodle. Sometimes Moodle is very funky and doesn't like to show things very accurately. And I didn't realize how many students really depend on that calendar, and I didn't realize how funky it was either. So this is a calendar that I've shared with you guys that will have links to the actual assignments in them. But this is like a calendar I set up on, my own Office 365, and put these dates in myself. So you can, kind of count on these dates. All right. So for each week, you'll have kind of the same format. The first thing you should really look at is the checklist. This is going to be really like your one-stop shop for all of the things that are going on for that week for the class. It'll have all of the participation activities in one place, all of the assignments in one place, and then any kind of events. So events are like what we're doing right now with a meetup, and then anytime that I have office hours for that week. So you'll note that for this week, I have office hours right after we're done today. And then I'll also hold some student hours in the morning tomorrow. So that is kind of going to be the standard format for when I have office hours. It'll be Fridays, like right after these meetups, and then on Saturday morning from 9 to 11. I tried to pick times that I thought that most students would be available. If you're not available during those times, though, I'm happy to set up a chat with you some other time when we're both available. Just shoot me an email. All right. So for the checklist, let me explain the participation activities a little bit, because I think there's been some confusion about it. So for each week, you're going to be adding up to 100 points. So you're going to be doing participation activities that are in the guided reading, in the guided reviews, and they will add up to 100 points or whatever grade you want for participation for that week. You'll see here that it gives you the point values, what type. It also will tell you if it's required or optional. So there usually will be at least one required activity. So for week one, there were actually 4. So all of the tutorials and this Ed puzzle assignment for creating references, those were all required. And so those totaled up to 85 points. So you needed to add up to 15 points with optional assignments. And so all of the other assignments were optional. All right, any questions about the checklist or how to use it? I think that this is kind of the spot that you can be assured that everything's all together in one place. So if you're feeling like kind of discombobulated with things, like this is the place to go to see it all together. Okay, Noah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you continue to go beyond completing 100 points. I assume there's no extra credit for that. That's just you having fun.
Yeah, it's just being a diligent student and getting some extra practice. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but there could be some extra credit opportunities that come up in the class, but they probably won't be in the participation activities. It's more likely that I'll give some extra credit opportunities for like doing revisions on some of your assignments and things. Good question though. All right. Okay, I'm gonna take us back. Okay, so for every week, there will be some resources. For week 2, I've deleted this column, the participation activities column, because it seems like it's confused a lot of people. Just look at the checklist for the participation activities. I had added this column just as kind of a courtesy to have another place to be able to access them, but I think it got too confusing, so I've deleted it for week 2. But what you will find here are the learning objectives. The learning objectives are really important in this class. They really are things that you should be going to and thinking about each week. Am I really understanding this? And if not, then you might need to do some extra work in those areas, like do some extra reading, some extra studying. Um, for all of the required readings, they'll be listed here, and any kind of resource that I have available for them, there will be a link to that. Sometimes there will be a reading guide, sometimes there won't. The reading guide really is just again, it's a courtesy to you. So I know you guys have lots of reading that you have to do for your classes, and so this is to help you to kind of hone in on what do I need to know from this chapter so that instead of having to read every word, you can kind of get out of the reading, extract what's really important. And then I also have links to the guided reviews. This takes you to the spot on Moodle um, where there's a guided review that goes over this information. So I really recommend that you guys do the required reading first. So go download the reading guides, do the reading, and then go back to do the guided reviews and the participation activities. Um, You'll find the next thing is kind of a collaborative effort between me and students on having study resources. Noah, you can ask as many questions as you want.
I know I feel goofy talking all the time. But I did want to just bring to your attention that, at least from my experience, the Chapter 3 quantitative and qualitative reading guide
Yeah,
is no longer available.
it's not. Okay. Yeah, so I apologize for that. I will go after this after this meeting. I will go through that and check those links again. What happened is I just did something kind of silly in the middle of all of this. I made these links through my Box drive, and then I got an external hard drive and moved everything over, and then all of the links deleted themselves. So I'll go back and check those to make sure everybody has access to them. I apologize for that. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so when we get down to the study resources, you'll see that these are all your learning objectives come back. So this is where I post extra resources that I have for you, but also you can go in and post resources too. So say you really didn't understand how to do reference lists. So you go and look for your own resources for it. and you're like, man, this video is really great. This is even better than what Dr. Dinecola posted. I want you to come and post it over here. It'll give me a little message to approve it. So I'll look at it, and usually it's, I've found that students find like really spectacular resources. Once it gets approved, then everybody sees it. Um, Also, the thing that I like about Padlet, which is what I use to create this, is that it's got a little bit of a social media feel to it. So let's say you don't really understand what the scientific method is, then you can add a comment and say, hey, can anybody explain this to me better? Or maybe there are 5 different definitions that people posted there, and one of them is just like really much better than the other ones. Then you can upvote them, you can downvote them. It's really meant to be interactive for you guys. All right, the next thing you'll find is guided reviews. This is what you should do after you've read the required reading, and this is a review. So you can think of this like what would happen in class if we were on campus. This might be what the lecture would be like, types of videos I might show you. But you also have all of the participation activities embedded here. So whenever you see an asterisk, that means that there is an available participation activity there. Um, so if you scroll through here, you'll see, some of them have 2 asterisks. That means that it's required. If it's just 1 asterisk, it means that it's an optional one. Something that I've been trying to do better for week 2 is to make sure I have the instructions both wherever the activity is linked to and in the guided reading, because I could see where some of you guys got a little confused about where to find some of the things that you needed. And then we also have the quiz, the assignments. The last thing I want to show you is the student resources. So the tech tools are here that I showed you before. This is just another place for them. There's also a bunch of resources that are either from the School of Social Work or just APA style in general. But I want to bring your attention to this because it's a little new. I sent you guys an email about it, but these are videos that I put together to explain some of the things that we've been going over today. So if you kind of get into week 2 and you're like, I'm not really sure how to navigate this, you can go back and look at one of my videos. All right. I am going to stop my screen share now because I think that we've got about 10 minutes left together. And I want to make sure that I answer any questions that you guys have. Are there any questions that y'all have that are lingering? Saw a thumbs up. Does anybody want to, one thing that some people have asked me some questions about are their practice question that they chose, or wanting some kind of consultation about that. I'll be available for about another hour today. So if you guys have specific questions like that, I'm happy to talk with you about it. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Oh, a question. Okay, Caroline.
Thanks. I might have just need to go back and read the syllabus again, but are we like the question we pick for our assignment, like the reference list assignment, are we going to be keeping that research question and building off of that, like the whole module? So we need to make sure we like the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. So the answer to that is pretty much yes. So in this first week's assignment, you guys are really, coming up with a practice question. So a practice question that you might need to consult some evidence about, right? So next week, what we're going to be doing is turning that practice question into a research question. So for instance, in my example, I was wondering about cognitive behavioral therapy and anxiety for young people with autism. So, in assignment number two, we are going to be getting into the conceptual framework. And so we're going to be transforming that from a practice question into a research question. So it's going to get more specific, and it's going to get more measurable. So, whereas right now I'm just thinking about, okay, I've got this client, I wonder if CBT is going to help him. And I want to go look at some research and see, is this a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing? What we're moving into is, how do we tell, how do we know if CBT works at reducing anxiety for young adults with autism? And so I'm okay sometimes with people switching topics, but it really is helpful if you keep the same topic. And so I really encourage students to pick topics that they're passionate about and that they want to learn about. Um, because if not, then it's going to be hard to sustain your attention the whole 6 week module or 7 week module on it. Are you thinking about changing your topic?
Oh, I wasn't thinking about changing it. I just like wanted to know like
Make sure.
long
Yeah.
term. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And, sometimes students do end up getting to a point where they're like, man, that first assignment was so hard to do. I'm stressed out. Maybe I need to change my topic. And so it's not completely unheard of to change your topic if you need to, but it is something that I ask students to reach out to me about before you just turn in your next assignment and it's a different topic. That was a great question.
Could I hop in, Professor?
Hmm?
I was just going to ask on that same note of the question, if we're not exactly sure what demographic or population our question is geared toward, but we are curious about an intervention,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that we should just kind of arbitrarily or, based on our curiosities, choose a population that we're curious about? Or do you think we can phrase the question just with regards to the efficacy of our intervention?
I think that you probably need to, even if it's not as specific as my topic, because my topic is like my dissertation topic, so it had to be very specific. And your topics might not ever get that specific, and that's fine. But you do want it to be more narrow than just, does CBT reduce depression? You want to at least say, like, in adults or in children, or maybe even to make it a little bit more narrow by comparing two interventions. So, is cognitive behavioral therapy better um, than another intervention or treatment as usual? I think that you're going to find that making it a little bit narrow is going to be better, because it's easy to get overwhelmed with it being too broad. But that's something that happens naturally over the course of the module too. So even if your question is more like, does CBT, help reduce depression for this first week, it'll start getting more narrow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't find the raise my hand function right now.
Yeah, that's okay.
I just have a quick question. Does the research question, I guess, have to be an intervention? Because I know some of the ones in the reading were more like descriptive or experience based. Like I was going to do something around like experiences in a domestic violence shelter. Um, does it have to be like an intervention based question? Like, does something work or not work?
So for now, for the practice question, it can be. It can be about like a client experience or that sort of thing. For the next assignment, when we're moving into making it a research study, I am asking for you guys to have a purpose that's either explanatory or evaluative. And so those will come up in your readings for week 2, what the different purposes of research are, but usually evaluation and explanation will be for explanation. It's usually whenever we are doing statistical analyses to look at relationships between two things. So, you may be looking at, what are predictors of, um, you know, what predicts someone going to a domestic violence shelter, and that may be something that you could do that was explanatory, um, or evaluative, which is usually an intervention. The thing that's going to come up, and the reason why I narrow it down, is because as we get further into this, we're going to be learning about research design. And usually for design, it is going to be either quasi experimental or experimental. And when we're just asking descriptive questions, we don't really need those kind of designs. It's usually just a survey type of thing where we're gathering preliminary information. Another thing moving forward with this next assignment is that we're going to be moving more into quantitative. So, not to discount qualitative research, but there are a lot of concepts in quantitative research that are really important for you guys to learn in this class. And so that's why I'm leaning more towards that way. You'll see in this new assignment number 2 that you can use mixed methods, but it's another situation where I'd like for us to talk first before you make that decision. I don't just want a paper that shows up that's mixed methods. I want to have expected it, like we talked about it and things.
Got it. Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. It's just you can start general, but eventually we have to narrow it.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our chat here. But I am going to open up my personal Zoom, which is what I use for office hours. So if you guys have other questions, especially if it's something that is maybe specific to your research topic, that sort of thing, you can hop on to that link. Okay. Thank y'all for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I assume I speak for everyone here, but the amount of detail and work that you've put into your class is really highly appreciated. It's kind of above and beyond I've seen any other professor do. And yeah, it's just really, really, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. I know that I try to balance it from not overwhelming people too, but I really am passionate about online education. So I don't want to freak anybody out or overdo it with you guys, but it also is nice to that you guys notice. All right. I hope y'all have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye, everyone.